I'm okay.
Okay, so let's get going. Good evening, everyone. Today we have Professor Raghunath Shevgaonkar. I think all of you know him quite well. He's going to talk about the Indian experiment on technology enhanced learning, achievements, and the way forward. I'm sure every one of you in here know the initiative called NPTEL, right? And he's the person behind. And I'm sure he's going to kind of share his experiences on such programs and also in general about the online education, let us say the scenario in India, which has, I think, have a different connotation now post-COVID and how things have kind of changed drastically. So it's very interesting to hear these aspects from the person who actually was behind such a major initiative which has actually changed the education space in India quite well. Especially the many colleges coming up in India, large number of engineering colleges coming up, and with no proper support of faculties, and for quite a few students, all of you know, this has become a major source of training. Anyway, but I shouldn't get into too much of the colloquium itself, which we want to hear from the speaker. But I have a much bigger challenge of actually introducing him to you. So that is going to be like a colloquium itself, if I want to do a good job. But let me see my best. So, of course, Shevgaonkar, besides all the topic that he's going to talk about is, per se, an active researcher in the area of electromagnetics, optics, and image processing, antennas, microwaves, radio astronomy. I was taking around in the permanent exhibition today in TFR, and he knows most of our people, and that's because of his connection to various technology areas. He also authored a textbook on electromagnetic waves, and a monograph on transmission lines for electrical engineers, and actually developed e-content for electromagnetics and optics. He has, of course, occupied leadership positions, many of them, including Director of IIT Delhi, Vice Chancellor of University Pune, Vice Chancellor Bennett University, and currently is the Professor of Emeritus at IIT Bombay, and also Provost of Somaiya Vidya Vihar. Incidentally, that is where I met him recently, and I kind of requested him to come and share his thoughts on this particular topic. He is one of the national coordinators of National Project on Technology Enhanced Learning, and the founder and head of the Center of Distance Engineering Education Program at IIT Bombay. He has several awards and fellowships. He's fellow of IEEE, which is the highest position of IEEE membership. Indian National Academy of Engineering, INAE, National Academy of Sciences in India, Institution of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineers, IETE, Optics Society, Institution of Engineers, Maharashtra Academy of Sciences, and a member of the International Astronomical Union. Is a recipient of the IEEE very prestigious William Shelley Award for his achievements in engineering education, IEEE Undergraduate Training Award for his inspirational teaching, SN Mitra Memorial Award of the INAE, and for his contributions to electromagnetics, antenna, and radio astronomy, and Ramlal Vardha Award of IETE for his outstanding contributions to optics, Vasvik Award in ICT, and the Excellence in Teaching Award at IIT Bombay. He has received the Education Leadership Award from Headlines Today and Devang Mehta Educational Excellence Award. The list goes on, and I think it's the time I kind of stop my introduction and I think have President Shevgankar's views on this very interesting thing. Thank you very much.
Is it on? Yeah. 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 Thank you, Dr. Satyanarayana. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'm feeling very nostalgic in the sense that you may not know, I gave my seminar at the beginning of my career in the same hall, exactly 35 years back. But that time it was a lot more technical program because I used to work in radio astronomy, and it was a talk on solar radio astronomy which was given, in the same hall. So I'm feeling very nostalgic, for coming here. So as Dr. Satyanarayana said, we happened to meet in one of the conferences, and he asked me whether I would give a talk in their asset colloquium. And he also mentioned that this is not a talk which is very technical. It should be still non-technical kind of talk, which we normally give in the asset colloquium. So I was wondering, what can I talk about which is non-technical, but still of general interest and still has a contemporary importance. So I thought, and he himself suggested that you have been involved in this online education or this NPTEL program. So why don't you share your experiences which you had with this? And that sounded interesting to me. So I thought I will talk about it. But then just telling the experience of NPTEL is not, very exciting for people, because that is something which has already happened. So I thought I will just talk in general perspective about what is happening in online education in our country and as a whole, actually across the world, and where we are really going ahead, in this scenario. So with that perspective, essentially, with a broader perspective, I'm going to make a presentation. Of course, I'm going to touch upon NPTEL in between and tell you what was the story behind NPTEL. But broadly, we'll talk about the online education scenario in the country. So let me just change it. Where did he change it?
Actually, there's some flag here. I think we have to.
Okay. All right. Now it will change?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will change. Okay. So let us start, that where the country is going. And, all of you must be knowing that in 2015, the government of India launched what is called the Digital India movement, And that under that, there are many activities which are projected, as you can see. So the activity which are projected under this, and by 2025, India wants to be really a powerhouse in the digital domain, and various services and activities in the digital domain have to be performed. So the thrust is on e-governance, the next generation financial services, the e-commerce, the agriculture, the health. And of course, one of the major thrust is there on the digital India is on the education sector. And that's what actually came as a vision statement, from the government of India. However, the education sector, the electronic media is not something which is coming because of Digital India movement, which came only in 2015. In fact, it started much before, now almost about 20-30 years before, even when we started talking about the digitization across the country and so on. But if we talk about the digitization and the digital domain expansion of education, first we should have a good perspective about our education system as a whole in the country. So you will see that education system in India is actually fairly new. So when we talk about globally, the universities are some few hundred years old. In India, the education system practically started post-independence. So after 1947, and at that point of time, India had only about 30 universities across the country, not more than that. Okay. So and since then the expansion of education system took phenomenally. Right, and I'm going to show you the expansion which it took place. So there was a massive expansion which took place in the education domain in last 70 years. So here is just a growth of education institutions in India. So you see in 1950, we are having very minuscule number of institutions across the country. And by the time we came to 2020, we are having higher educational institutions which are almost touching 40 to 45,000, right, which are the colleges which are having in the country. If you look at the engineering institution, where the significant growth has taken place because the student activities are more oriented toward the engineering side. So again, you see the similar kind of growth which has taken place. And today we are having almost like 5,000 engineering institutions across the country. Right? So earlier was the total general institution. These are the engineering institutions which you see in the country. So the growth is almost exponential. And the growth essentially has taken place after about 2000 or 1990. Till that time, the things were almost flat. Things were not happening. So like 1990 was almost like a tipping point, beyond which then the expansion took place very, very rapidly in the country. So if you ask me how the distribution of these institutions are across the country, so you will see the central government, of course, has the institutions which are very, very small in number, right, where the IITs and NITs and all those things can come. Then you are having universities which are mostly in the state domain or other institutions. Then there are some local bodies which run the institution. You are having a state government institution which are there. And then there's a private aided institutions and the private unaided institutions, right? So these are the categories in which you see the institutions across the country. And in last 50 years, or seeing up to 1990, last 40 years, essential expansion has taken place in this domain, which is the private unaided sector. And that's where the expansion. And as I mentioned, since the interest of the student was always towards engineering and management, these institutions essentially grew in this area, right, which was either in engineering or in the management side. So if you want to see the numbers, right, there are the institutions which are of national importance, which are 17 number, which include IITs and NITs. Then there are central universities, which are 54. The state public universities about 455. The deemed to be university 126. Private universities 421. And this number is increasing actually every day. So the total universities which you see today is about 1100 plus. That's the number which you see. So when we got independence, we had only 30 institutions or 30 universities. Today, we are almost at 1100 plus universities across the country. And that is the growth which has taken, in last 60, 70 years. Now, again, if you see the population of these institutions, it is not uniformly distributed across the country. So this gives you a number. For example, the lightest area which you see, the white area which is almost in northeast Bengal or Bihar, Jharkhand kind of thing, you will see about 0.6 to 1.8 institutions per lakh of residence people there. Right? That's the sort of number of institutions you have. Whereas if you go to Telangana, there are about 5.5 to 6.8 institutions per lakh students, which are there. So the growth is more in south, in Telangana, in Andhra Pradesh, in Karnataka, right? Where Tamil Nadu and other regions come late and next. And little development has taken place in Odisha, of Uttar Pradesh, and Kashmir, and in the northeast side. So even if large number of expansion has taken place, it is not uniform. It is fairly skewed, toward the southern states, of the country. Nevertheless, if I look at the numbers and the requirement of the country in the higher education sector, our population is about 1.2 billion, right? 120 crore, 130, where you can put it. The number of colleges are about 40,000. Number of institutions are engineering institutions are about 5,000. Graduating students are about 50 lakhs per year, right, from all these institutions. And engineering, there are about 10 lakh students who graduate every year, right? And that's the annual budget. If you put, the government of India puts it, you convert into dollars, right, you will get about $2 billion US, which is not a large amount as far as the volume of the education is concerned. And our gross enrollment ratio today is claimed to be 28%, which is still one of the probably lowest in the world. Even in Asian countries have a gross enrollment ratio which is higher than this, right? What that means is, if you wanted to really become a developed nation, which we aspire to become, our gross enrollment ratio has to at least go 50 plus. That means the number of institutions which we require have to at least double in the years to come, right? So if you are putting 10-year plan or something like that, then you require a huge expansion still to take place, right? So the expansion which has taken place, though it is exponential, it is still not adequate, from the requirement of the country point of view. Right? That is the scenario which we are having in the country. Now, if you look at the teaching learning process, though the expansion took place, the methodology of teaching learning is not changed significantly, right? What that means is, with this, whatever system we are having, what is called the conventional teaching system, which is prevalent in all colleges, all institutions, this system we call now as a teacher-centric system, right? What that means is the teacher is the focus of the entire education system. He is the one who teaches, he is the one who decides what is to be taught, right? He is the one, he's the whole soul of the entire teaching learning process. So in this process, then so what are the features of this? Of course, we have a face-to-face kind of classrooms, right? That's what we all are used to. The limited exposure of a real life problem in classrooms. So most of the time we discuss either hypothetical problems or the problem which are well-tailored problem for which solution exists, and so on and so on. So mostly text-based kind of content is taught, and maybe simple experiments are conducted into this mode there, right? So when the technology started coming into practice in education, then people started seeing the limitations of the conventional teaching. Right? And we all still think that conventional teaching probably is one of the best way of really communicating and transferring information and teaching people. However, if you see very impartially, you will realize that although this method has been existing for last 2000 years, it has its own limitation. And technology probably can help you in improving this mode of communication, right? So that is one of the thinking which started happening toward the end of last century. So the limitation of conventional teaching, we all know is, first of all, this model is not a scalable model, right? So whenever you say you are conducting a class, the class size can be of the order of only 50, 60 students, maybe 100, something like that. So if you are having a good teacher, if you are having a good expert, then at a time he can only address about 50, 60 people at a time, right? So first is non-availability of experts. This is one of the shortcomings of the conventional way of teaching, right? So that is one thing. Second thing, you are having a limited number of students per class, and the pace of presentation, again, as I said, it is teacher-centric. So teacher decides on what pace the thing should be taught, right? As a result, what happens, half the class is below that level, half the class is above that level. So practically you are teaching to some region in between where hardly anybody exists, right? So half the people think what is going on in the class is too slow, half the people think it is going too fast, right? And because of that, you create a lot of unsatisfaction among the students, right, in face-to-face conventional mode. So though we have been used to this mode, right, when you go to ground reality and you ask the student, was the class really the way you wanted it? Invariably, the answer will be no. I didn't want that way. Somebody will say it was too fast, somebody will say it was too slow, the content was not appropriate, and so on. Second thing, what happens in this mode is that the expert, no matter how passionate he is about the subject, if you ask him to teach the subject 20 times, he gets bored, right? He gets completely fatigued, right? So after some time, it becomes more like a routine kind of job for him, right? So that's what actually happens. So these are some of the limitations which you see. So keeping this scenario in mind and saying that now technology is available to help you, right, in this sector of education, can there be a solution to really improve the situation there? So ICT-enabled education origin, actually, one of the reasons is that there are some limitations of the conventional teaching, and ICT can play a role in improving the teaching learning process, which we are really talking about, right? However, one should not confuse the technology-enhanced learning or technology-enabled learning with the MOOCs or the online courses. Online is only one part of the technology-enhanced learning, right? Technology-enhanced learning, even in a conventional class, you can make use of technology to make the class much more effective. There's a possibility there, right? So just to give a simple example, if you are teaching a course on biology, right, or you are teaching a course on, let us say, human anatomy, right, instead of drawing the figures on the board of the anatomy, now you can use the IT technology to really show the body section by section. You can see literally what is happening inside your body. And that can give you a much better understanding when the students are exposed to through this technology. So that's what the thinking is, that when the ICT-enabled education can be brought in, ideally it could be more effective of mode of communication and teaching. So technology-enhanced learning essentially is the new paradigm of teaching learning process, okay? And some feel this paradigm could be far more effective than the way the conventional teaching can really take place, right? However, India did not get into this mode, right? Before that. So let me just see that. So if I compare now with the conventional way of teaching and the technology-enabled one, you will see that there is a lot of differences between these two. One mode is very active, one mode is collaborative, one is more creative, right? And one mode is more integrative, evaluative, and so on and so on. So many things which normally you will not be able to do in a conventional way of teaching, technology will facilitate that. So you can have a very diverse kind of class. So first of all, synchronization is completely sort of broken down by the technology. So the classes don't have to be space synchronized. They don't have to be time synchronized. They don't have to be even by this homogeneous classes. So you have a lot more variety and diversity into the class, which brings completely new kind of thinking, right, in the teaching learning process, right? So that is the sort of advantage. So what do we want in modern learning? If you ask the people, the modern learning, teaching learning process, we want to happen student-centric. And that's what you will hear everywhere now. At least the modern students, if you talk, they will say, I don't want to be dictated by people. What should I learn? I should learn what I want to learn. I should learn the way I want to learn, the pace at which I want to learn. And that's the kind of flexibility actually the younger generation is looking for. So the modern e-learning technology definitely can facilitate that. Okay, and that's what is the origin of this. So in India, realize this, that the technology can be used for increasing the sort of sphere of influence long back. And it started in the form of countrywide classroom. And many of you probably, young people, I don't know, you must be kids there that time when the countrywide classroom started, right? There used to be a TV program which used to come in the middle of the day from 12:45 to 1:45, where all eminent people, scientists or experts in various fields, they used to come and give a talk for 1 hour, right? And a lot of people used to listen to this channel, right? And this was just a 1 hour program which used to run, every day. Later on, they expanded this program to 1 more hour in the evening from 4 to 5, right? And I myself, I remember I heard the lecture from Professor Yashpal, or many other scientists, who had done some research. They came on this channel and actually gave the talk, and very exciting talks which used to come from there. Now, during this time, there were a lot of EMRC, the Education Media Research Centers were developed, right, across the university to make use of this mode of TV transmission for dissemination of information across the country. Okay, and today you see across the country there are about 21 EMRCs in the country, which are still functional and sort of develop the programs for the television. Then it sort of got to the next stage, what is called the VSET technology. So these centers started transmitting their lectures or videos, right, in the form of from the satellite. There were the EMRC centers which were distributed across the countries, right, and you can really receive the very high quality content, at various locations there. So VSET technology it ran for some time in the 80s, right, for creating the wider audience across the country. So the advantage of this was that at least students were exposed to the high quality teachers. So you have a high quality teacher there who can give a talk or who can give a lecture, and large number of people across the country can listen to this lecture. It was not having a two-way communication, right? Students could not really go and ask the question back or interact, but at least they could listen to the lecture which are of very high quality. And that's what actually happened. There was no flexibility in scheduling. So there was a space synchronization was taken care of, but the time synchronization was still there. Because at the same time, the person who is giving the lecture and the person who is listening have to be present at the same time, right? Though they could be distributed very across the country and so on. But this became reasonably cost-effective mode of expanding the education sphere across the country in the 80s, right? So it was a very effective mode which actually took place. Then the mode came that when the technology becomes available and the video recording and the CDs and all that become cheaply available, essentially things were sort of converted into this form, electronic media, in the form of set of CDs. So where the time synchronization is gone, space synchronization is gone, you can record your lectures, keep on CDs and distribute to people, and you can just watch the lectures at your own pace. There was no interaction possible, updating of the content was not possible, but at least the content was disseminated to a very, very large audience across the country, right? That's what was happening in the 80s and 90s, right? And then came the era of internet. And when the internet came, then of course, things became completely different. Because then the technology for dissemination was available to people on their doorstep. Everybody had the computers, access to them. The internet connectivity was there, right? The content was created somewhere, and you could create probably a lot more content and can put on the internet form. And then the reach of the content became much, much, much wider, right? So the web-assisted learning essentially created a completely asynchronous model of education, right? And that was something major step which happened, in 90. So by the time you reach to the end of the century, you will see that there were two forces which were working, right, in the favor of technology, to create a completely new model and paradigm, of higher education. One was, of course, that you wanted flexibility in the teaching learning process. You wanted a wider reach of this thing to much higher wider community across the country. But the bigger problem was that the growth of education sector which took place in India. So the initial plots which I showed you, that when India got independence, there was hardly any engineering college in the country. And by the time you reach to 2000 and to 2010, the engineering colleges are in the range of about 5,000. Now, this expansion took place only in 20 years. So 1980 onwards to about 2000 or 2010, 20, 25 years, the number of engineering colleges rose from few tens to few thousand. Right? This is a very sharp expansion. Now, the core of any education system is the faculty. Unless you are having a quality faculty, no matter what infrastructure you create, no matter how brilliant students you are, you will never get the quality product out. So by the end of 2000, something like around that time, the IIT started thinking that you got this massive expansion of engineering education. There are bright students also who are getting admissions into it, but where are the teachers? There are no teachers in these colleges, right? And that was the motivation to say that now, can we create something by the help of technology? So at least these students will not be deprived of the quality education, right? That was the motivation. And with that, the IITs together, they went to Government of India and proposed to them that, look, we want to do something, we want to create the content which is similar to the way it is taught in IITs, which is a good quality content. We want to make it available to as large a community as possible. Right? That was the proposal which was made. First of all, Government of India is not even convinced that this project can be done. Okay. So it went almost for 2-3 years back and forth, right? And that time, Professor Anant, who was the director of IIT Madras, he was sort of coordinating all these activities. So he must have made umpteen number of trips to Delhi, to MHRD, to convince them that no, there is a requirement of this kind of thing in the country. Because without having quality teachers, you will never be able to produce the good engineers, even if you are having bright students getting admission into it. Finally, after all the efforts and so on, the National Mission on Technology Enhanced Learning, what is called NME-ICT, under which this project, what is called National Project on Technology Enhanced Learning, NPTEL, which was proposed in 2003. Right? So that was one of the sort of the breakthrough, if we say, in our bureaucracy, that we could now convince the bureaucracy that no, the teachers and the quality teaching and the quality material is the core of an education system. And unless you are having that, no matter how good a large number of institutions you create, you will never be able to make an impact, engineering impact, which you are looking for. So just NPTEL, that is the project which was launched in 2003. Yes, please.
The bureaucrats go against it.
There were two reasons for that. One was that they thought the project which is proposed by so many institutions together. First of all, they thought this coordinated project they were never seen in the country. So they thought it will never happen. Secondly, it is sort of a mindset that any investment which you do in education, people think as an expenditure. Normally, it should be seen as an investment. So the question which was always asked is, if you give me this much money, how much return I will get? Right? Can you show that? What is the gain? So we used to always say that, look, if it is going to 10 lakh engineers are going to graduate from the country, even if 10% of that are well educated, it is an asset which you are creating for the country. Right? So that was the sort of negotiation which went on. So money was one aspect. the trust in the system that we'll deliver, that was another thing which was there, right? But finally, in 2003, the project was approved, and the whole thing really started. So that is something, and which was a coordinated project sponsored by MHRD, which is now called Ministry of Education, right, and implemented by all IITs and IISc together. Right, that's what the thing which happened. So this project, first of all, this project is probably one of the most coordinated projects which you can see in the country. Because all IITs and IISc came together, and that time there were 7 IITs which were there and IISc, right? They proposed this together, that we together are going to do this thing there. Okay. So this is the project which is highly coordinated. So to make the project work, first of all, we wanted a robust structure, right, across the institution, so that in a coordinated fashion, we can really work on this. So the NPTEL structure was, there was one overall national coordinator, and that time it was thought that when you are creating this content, one is of course a mode which is the normal lecture mode, which students are really familiar with. But people thought that since you are having an internet technology with you, the web courses or web teaching might be more effective. That was the thinking at that point of time. So it was decided that we will create the 2 parallel channels available for the content creation. One will be in the form of web, other will be in the form of video content. Right? And for each of them, there were national coordinators which were appointed, and then there were institution coordinators, one for each institutions or one for each IITs. Right? I happen to be one of them. And then there were principal discipline coordinators, because you had different subjects or the disciplines in which the content was created. So there were discipline coordinators. And then there were professors who were chosen the best professor in that particular subject for creating this content. So it was not arbitrarily given to people that whoever wants to come and create a lecture. We made an effort to identify the best possible person in that area, right, in different IITs. And then we went to them and said, you create this content. Of course, many of them were very hesitant, because they were, first of all, they were not used to even facing camera, and giving recording lectures. But finally, they were convinced, and this kind of contents actually were created. And then there was, of course, the technical staff which was required to create the video content and so on. So NPTEL phase 1, we started in 2003, which was 7 IITs and IISc started together. As I mentioned, it is for both the video and web content. More than 300 faculty and 200 supporting staff was involved in the implementation of this project. Okay. And they were all like well-established professors, experts in their own field and so on. The state-of-the-art studios were set up, because to have a quality content creation, we really require a good acoustic kind of chambers, we require good video content created and so on, right? And then the question which was asked is that when you are going to create this content, the users of this content are not IITs, because IIT, the professor is already there. So this content you are creating for the universities or the students who are outside IIT, right? So the first question was, how would you decide the content which you are going to create? Because each university has its own syllabi, they have their own board of studies, they have their own structure and so on and so on. So one decision which was taken was that we will create the content which is modular in nature. So each course will be divided into modules, small modules, and any university can decide the combination of the module as their syllabi, whatever suits them. So some flexibility was actually created into this program. At that time, most of the engineering colleges, they had these disciplines, the computer science, civil, electrical, electronics, and mechanical. The project said, we will create the content only for these disciplines to start with, and the basic sciences, which is the core requirement of engineering. So these are the areas in which actually the courses were created. The guidelines for the courses came from AICTE, which was the nodal body for technical education. And all in all, 220 courses were developed in a period of 3 years. Right. Now, each course is normal class, which is 40 lecture class, the way it is conducted in IIT. Right. The same kind of course converted into web thing, that was parallelly done. So out of 220, half the courses were developed in the web format, and half the courses were developed in the video format, the way lectures are conducted inside the IIT. Okay, so these two parallelly, which was done there. And that was so you had the studio kind of created in all institutions. So you have editing rooms, you have the classrooms, the smart classroom, what they call today, that you are having the camera, the video recording systems, and so on and so on. So all IITs actually created this system there. And then we mentioned that there are two streams, the video courses and the web courses were parallelly developed, right, in each subject. So every subject was having one web course, one video course. And that time, at least the feeling was, the students will feel more comfortable with the web courses, right? Because they can sort of browse through, they can go back and forth, right, and so on and so forth. The video lectures are like typical classroom lectures, so people may not really like them. But exactly opposite happened, right? So when the material was put out there, the web courses were not taken by people, right? They still thought having a teacher in front of you and telling you something is still far more effective, because still they were used to the conventional mode of teaching. So now, although you are in the electronic domain, looking in a web course, right, that was not very attractive for the student. That was one. Second thing, development of web course, most of the faculty also are not sure what do we want to put in web course? How the web course could be different than a book? Can I put the same content, in the slide form and say, call it a web course? Ideally, web course is far more advanced and developed. You require a multiple sort of layers, where you can click and sort of see the different layers on which explanations could be there, or the diagrams could be there, videos could be there, and so on and so on. That kind of effort actually was not properly put into that. So finally, the web courses become more like set of slides and transparency. And that, as I mentioned, was not very attractive to the student. So when I look at these courses which are there, you have a video lecture, like typical one. And these are again done in two ways. The lecture is giving in the room, and the professor is giving lecture in the class. It is recorded live the way it is recorded now. Or many times people used to sit, right, for better quality, video quality, and write on the paper. And that was projected like a blackboard, and you could develop the content, in that form. But the mode was similar to the way you do into the classroom. Or you could have the web courses, as I mentioned, set of slides which you put, right? So it was a structure given for each course. The format was given, which was uniformly followed by various people, and the content was created in this mode, right? Then, to make this whole process robust, there was a review process which was set into this. That means after the course was created, a completely independent expert was identified for every subject, and the video or web lectures were sent to him. So it was almost like a torture to him, because he has to listen to all the 40 lectures to make the comments. But that's what was done. So feedback was taken from all the experts. The feedback was incorporated into the subject. And then finally, the content was made available to the people, right? So it's a fairly exhaustive process which the system went through for creating really the quality content, right, which can be used by the students, right, in the other institutions. Then after 2006 or something, with this so-called success of NPTEL 1, because as I mentioned initially, the MHRD was not even confident that anything will come out of it. Finally, when they saw that 220 courses are available now, they thought, well, there is something on which we can trust now, that something more can be developed, right? So then the expansion took place, and there was something called phase 2 and phase 3, which almost were launched at the same time. And what was done that time was that they said, let us not look at only those colleges which are having only these 5 branches. Let us look at the engineering as a whole and create the content for all possible engineering branches. And again, the same process was done, same scrutiny was done, the expert identification was done, and so on. And finally, we could develop the courses, about 1,000 courses which are developed, in the form of now more on video, because web courses were not too much appreciated by people. So today, when I go and look at the NPTEL, there are about 1,000 plus video courses available, each like classroom lecture of 40 lectures or 50 lectures that is available for consumption of the people, which is outside. And that is really a phenomenal task, if you really look at the creator content creation and the challenges which you are having there. So if I show you a typical NPTEL website, it looks like that. So you go to a website, you will see that this is the NPTEL. It is having the different the subjects in which the contents are created. They are created by different institutions, and these are the course sort of templates which are there. You can click on that. It will go to the next level where you will see the lectures and their titles and so on and so on. Right? So you can look at that. There is a fair amount of search mechanism has been put into the NPTEL. So you can search the courses based on the institution. You can search the courses based on the subject, the discipline, right, and so on and so on. So it's a flexible website which is given, so that it becomes much more user friendly, and large number of people should be able to use this program. Right? It has sort of, as the thing went on developing, the feedback started coming from the users. And then many suggestions were made even by the users coming from remote places. They know, why do you incorporate this feature, that feature, and so on. So one of the suggestions which came is, of course, we want a search kind of thing, within your content, right? So one search could be, author search could be there. So I don't know, but if I know some professor has offered some course, I can always search by the author. I can search by the title of the course. I can do that. Or I can even put the topic and search for the topic, which is not the course name, but somewhere the topic has come in between some course, right? You can put the search and you can really reach to that particular lecture and so on. You can even have the keywords can be put into the search, and the keyword will direct you appropriately to the corresponding course and so on, right? You can also have the keywords even in the live lectures, video lectures, that at what time this particular thing has been discussed. If you put a keyword there, you can go and reach to that particular video content. So fair amount of thinking, feedback process, incorporation has taken place to bring to the NPTEL where it stands today with about 1,000 plus courses, right? And these kind of flexibilities which are there, right? So now, once the content is created, one of the requirement, of course, from the student side is they should be able to download this lecture. They should be able to get the FAQs to be answered, right? So all the structures went on slowly building into the NPTEL. So today, if I look at this thing, it is a fairly rich repository which we have, right? And earlier, all these lectures were hosted on the NPTEL server, right? Which is in Delhi or IIT Madras or somewhere. Later on, people thought that there is no reach or there's a capacity problem on this server. And it so happened that time the YouTube came forward and said, would you like to host this lecture on our server on YouTube? So all these lectures are now available on YouTube. So anybody can either go to the NPTEL server, right? Or you can go to YouTube and you can find all these lectures which are available in the form of the video lecture format. There are different formats from which you can download these things, so that MPEG format or whatever that is, so that it becomes suitable for the later on viewing for the student, right? Then the idea came of, again, from the feedback from people, that the lecture which are given by the experts, many times they are consumed by the rural students. And many times what happens is they don't understand what the person is saying. Of course, we have a lot of dialect variation across the country, right? So everybody speaks English, but the English sounds different, from different part of the country. Similarly, if you are coming from a very remote place, the English may be okay, but you may not be able to understand many of the things because either accent or dialect or whatever that is, right? So the suggestion came that to understand the lecture better, can we have the transcription of the lecture under that? So at least I can read, at the same time. So there was a very massive task because you have to listen to the lecture and transcript it. So the huge number of people were employed actually whose job was to listen to all the lectures and create the transcription of the lecture and so on. So there was this one. So now you see the NPTEL lecture. Now if you see, you have a video lecture and there is a transcription which runs under that. Okay. So those who cannot really understand what the person is saying, he can always read below that, so which make the thing much more student friendly to people. Okay. Then the idea came that this content which is created, again, it was created for the normal student, but what was found is that students normally don't use the content just for sake of using content. They always want some tangible output, from that. And one of the things which people found is this content is more useful for the GATE preparation. Why? Because the GATE papers are set by the IIT professors. So the thinking which has gone into the lecture also will get reflected into your testing pattern, your examination. So GATE student wanted to use this content more and more. So they said, why don't you create now the framework which can be a training for the GATE students, for different subjects. And that was the thing which was created under that. So there was a GATE syllabus which was followed, right? And there were different phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And it was a sort of exhaustive mapping was done to guide the students how this thing will really look like. So GATE preparation material was available. It was also shown, different tests which were sort of, the tests were there. You could take your own test to find out whether you understood the subject or not. It also showed you the question which came in GATE paper sometime. And it also showed you the reference in the NPTEL lecture. This question was answered there in that lecture, so and so, right? You can go and sort of cross-check that thing there. So a reverse forward mapping was done to make the thing content which is much more useful to the people. And large number of people started using this content for the GATE preparation, right? So it became more like a GATE repository, for across the country. Then there are special courses which were developed under NPTEL, which were modular and which were not in the curriculum kind of courses there. So one of the example, if I wanted to give you, there is a Ayurvedic inheritance, of India. So there was Professor Veliathan, he is Padma Vibhushan, right? He said he want to create this Ayurvedic content which can be made available to large number of people. So this was created and made available to large number of people. So it's far beyond now the curriculum content, which NPTEL's original focus was. Then with this transcription, then the further demand came, can we have now multilingual? I come from different state, I can understand the content which you are writing on the board or explaining, but I would be better if you tell me in my own language. So the next step was done was that the content transcription was actually done in the local vernacular languages. So you see now the lecture where you can give a choice, and this could be Gujarati, or this could be English, right? This could be Marathi, this could be Oriya. So the transcription now can be multilingual. So you can choose the language in which you would like to see the transcription along with the video lectures and so on, right? So that is the next step which actually went into NPTEL. Okay, so the subtitles came on different languages and people really started making use of it. Now with this effort, which has gone, right, for almost about 10-15 years in NPTEL, the NPTEL stands today at a fairly, satisfactory level in the sense that whatever was thought of from this project, it has actually delivered far more than that. So today, if you look at the web portal of NPTEL, there are about 471 plus million views, in last 10 years, from NPTEL, right? Secondly, on YouTube channel, if you see, right, you're the most subscribed educational channel across the world, if you really see NPTEL. So if I look at the numbers where they are used across the world, you will see this is one of the most used channels. There are 1.5 million channel subscribers which are there on YouTube. There are 819 plus million views which are there on the YouTube lectures, and interestingly, 20% of those hits are from the Western universities. Right? That is something interesting. So though the focus was to create something for the Indian scenario, because there is a shortage of teachers and we wanted to fill the gap, the content created what was at such a level that even the foreign university students really started using this content. And from my own experience, many times I hear a comment from a student saying that I wish my professor was like an Indian professor. And this is the great satisfaction which you can get, that even in Western universities, even in US, many students think that Indian professors have taught this subject far better than what their own professors is teaching in their own university. Right? And it's very, very satisfying. So the overall, you have got about 1,000 plus courses developed, as I mentioned, 50,000 plus hours of video content with all those features which I mentioned to you is available completely free of cost in public domain, right? The most video content transcribed is about 54,000 plus. The most accessed library by peer-reviewed education, this is the NPTEL, and every day there are about 40 to 50 GB data which is downloaded from the NPTEL site. That means there is a heavily used content, which gives you the satisfaction for the NPTEL. Okay, these are the numbers which I showed you. It's on the site. I have taken the thing. So these are the numbers which are there. So the partnering institution today on this thing is about 26. There are completed courses was 4,813. Student enrollment. After this thing NPTEL happened, one of the problems which was there is the usage of this content, and I'll come to that in a minute. But later on, people said that just giving the content is not enough. We want the certification for this particular course. That means you should be able to conduct the examination. You should be able to certify that I am having the quality, right, through which I have really gone through. So the certification programs were started, and this is the sort of enrollment which you get for the certification program so far, right? So this certification started almost in 2010 later on. So in last 10 years, that's the kind of student enrollments took place. These are the examination registration for this, and these are the successful certification which people have got in various subjects, from the NPTEL. And interestingly, many of the certification which was done in collaboration with NASSCOM. And the understanding was, if you get this certificate, which was endorsed jointly by NASSCOM, then employer will honor them. So it became more employable sort of certification, that if you have done this course and you got a certificate, the industry will honor it, and it makes you essentially more employable. While NPTEL was happening, parallelly there was another thing which was happening, what is called a virtual laboratory. Because engineering is not only theory, it is only having more hands-on experience, laboratories, and so on and so on. And this project, then what it did, it actually created simulations for the laboratory experiments in physics, in chemistry, right, in various subjects. So the electronics and communication, computer science, electrical, mechanical, chemical, civil, biotechnology, physical sciences, chemical sciences, you will see that the way the experiments are conducted in lab, they can be emulated, they can be simulated, and they can be shown, right? You can sort of connect the different component systems and see how the experiments will be conducted in laboratory, how they will function, what the results would be, how you take the readings. Many of the things actually were incorporated into that, right? And again, large number of institutions were involved in creating this structure. So virtual lab program, today if you ask, there is a total nodal centers are about 1,388. Usage is, you can see that, look at the numbers. They're all phenomenally large numbers there. What that means is these two projects, which came essentially from the teaching point of view, they really created impact across the country as far as the usage of the thing is concerned, right? And it looks like that when I look at the numbers, like how many hits are there on the website, it looks very, very satisfying, right? Question is, how is the NPTEL and all this virtual lab content has been adopted into our education system? Right? And that is one of the questions which we always have been asking right from the beginning. So we have a free distribution, right, of all the courses on hard disk, freely available. Actually, that also surprises, by the way, the Western people, that when these courses were available, some student wrote to me after going through the course, how can I pay for it? And I said, no, you don't have to pay, it is free. And he said, are you kidding? There's such a valuable content you are giving free of cost to anybody? So even Western world can't even digest that kind of thing can be done, free of cost. Parallel of this, if you put NPTEL, was the OCW, which came from MIT. But the focus of these two was very different. MIT was, that's the way we have some content created, take it or leave it, it's your choice. Indian thing, the focus was, we wanted to have a societal commitment that we will fill the gap which is there because of shortage of faculty. So contents were available from MIT, from IIT, right? But their mandate was very, very different, right? So NPTEL then created, for awareness, they created cells, and in each colleges, the regular workshops are conducted in the colleges and so on and so on. But the interesting observation which we got is that this content is now more used by the faculty rather than the students. Though the objective was students should be able to make use of it. But the faculty started using this content, especially the new faculty who joined. Many times they did not know how to conduct a course. And this was the thing which was available to him, now available, so he could really go through the lectures and really go and teach into the class, in the live class, into his college. And that was something which was not expected, but which started happening, right? So more faculty started using. The challenge is, however, is how would you embed this content of whatever is created, high quality content, into your syllabi, right? Because all universities are completely independent. They define their own syllabi. So we said we make modular, but how do you really put that into the syllabi, right? So that is one challenge. Of course, now the UGC has said that you have to have at least 40% content put into your curriculum, which is coming on online. So maybe more people will start using it in the form of syllabi. Second problem which was there was that the content was good, right? And whenever we talk to the students who went through the content on their own proactively, you ask them, how did you find the content? Invariably, the answer was great content. But how does it help me? Right? So what does it mean? How does it help me? Because the exams, the way they are conducted in the university, they are again only of the type of describe in detail. Right? No analytical thinking, no logical thinking in the examinations, only describe in detail kind of examination. So the content is good, you understood the subject well, but it is not scoring in the university examination. So students said, unless that system changes, this content is certainly not going to give me any tangible output. I can appreciate all the lectures. So this is something which is one of the biggest challenges which you see, right? For adding this content into the curriculum, because unless the examination reform takes place in the country, which is very badly needed, right? Unless you will not see the impact. And then motivating the student to use the NPTEL content. If this examination reform takes place, if the students start seeing tangible outputs, I'm sure this content will be far more used right into the thing. With this success of NPTEL and virtual lab, then in last 10 years, you will see the India launched so many projects which are in the education sector, right? Many of them you may not even heard of, right? So you see there is a SWAYAM platform, which is a now larger platform, which is a lot of houses, even NPTEL in that. Then you are having a SWAYAM Prabha, there is a national depository, there is a national digital library, virtual labs, so many projects which are there, which are running in the education sector today, right? Which are available. So for research, for teaching, for innovation, for various things which you can think of, right? These projects actually have been launched there. So the original project which came, it gave the confidence to the government agency that no, this is the right direction, there is the utility of this, and this thing can be done within India. So I don't think you see so many resources available in any other country. So I was talking to somebody in Europe. So when we were talking about NPTEL, we were developing about 200 courses. I went and he was boasting in one of the conferences, we have created MOOCs. And I said, how many? He said 2. So he asked me, how many you have created? I said 200. So thing was that when people are talking about developing 1 course or 2 courses, I think we have gone much ahead of it, right? And today, if you really look at our scenario, which is far better than that. Now, this vision which is projected now for the next 10 years, right, which is PM e-Vidya kind of digital platform, where the universities and everything, online education, and something which can use this material, that has been projected. But the seed actually came from the earlier projects which are there. Now, having understood that, can I take 5-10 minutes more? Okay. So with this now created, and it has gone into the educational content, has gone into that. There are natural questions which are in everybody's mind, right? They are in the minds of the student, they are in the minds of the faculty, they are in the minds of even common man, right? The first question which is there, does the ICT-enabled education really work, right? And you will see a diverse opinion on this, right? Some people say it may work, some people say no, it doesn't work, and so on, right? So the effectiveness depends upon how it is used and for what purpose. So that's what has to be clear when we use this content. For basic education, primary, secondary, I think the content, even the electronic content, is not a very good choice, right? It works for higher education, provided the student is motivated, right? In the classroom, what happens is the student is forced to listen to something. Here now you are leaving everything to the student. If he wants to go through it, he wants to go through it. So the motivation is something which is very, very important. And it works for professionals and teachers for enhancing thematic knowledge. So the industry people can upgrade themselves very easily by going through this content without going through the normal process system. If I look at now the attributes of education as a whole, you will see that the education has information, knowledge, analytical skill, logical reasoning, formulation of problem, ethos, holistic vision, what to return, what to learn, what not to learn. If I put all together, the ICT can sort of take care of these three things. The remaining two things, logical reasoning, formulation of problems, you require combination of teacher and ICT. And following thing which you are having holistic vision, all that cannot come from the ICT. For that, you really require a human being in front of you, a face-to-face learning. Nevertheless, large component of the attribute which you require in education, that can be supported by the ICT network, right? And that's what has given the confidence. Fear, will it replace teachers? ICT, right? And the answer categorically is no, it does not. It will not replace teacher. However, teachers have to change themselves. If teachers still think they are the only source of giving information, I think they are wrong. Now the information is available everywhere. Anybody can go through the information. So the teacher have to first orient themselves and accept that they are not the only source of information now. They should do something more than that. So they should become mentor, they should become inspirer, right? They can become educational innovator, they can become researcher. And that is good thing for teacher, that now their time is not going into the routine mundane work. They can now focus on the higher levels of education. They can focus more on research, right? And the education standard actually can be increased. So the teachers are very much needed into the system. I only think their role has to be redefined. Will ICT be a solution for every problem, right? Judicious use of ICT definitely is required, right? When moving forward. Now, ICT is a great assisting tool, right? But remember, it is a tool, and you always require a brain to run the tool, right? And that's what actually will happen. So ICT is not a substitute for the robust education system. And I want to sort of emphasize on this, because of late, the policymakers have started thinking that everything can go online now. That means now the normal colleges are not required, normal professors are not required, teachers are not required, the universities can become online. I think we have to be little careful in that direction. We have to think about it, right? So we should not start thinking that since we are having the ICT now with us, for ICT-enabled education, our universities have become redundant. Actually, it is not, right? If you want to have a good quality education, the robust education system, right, has to be in place. And ICT is not a substitute for the robust education system, right? They can only complement it for the basic education system. So there are challenges in implementation of this. I can skip for this one. Then came the NEP 2020, all of you are available, National Education Policy, which came, and they also emphasized essentially on the use of technology, for the flipped classroom and so on and so on. So I think we are at this point, we are at the right time, right? So, and what happened in COVID time, right, 2 years when everything was closed down, the COVID actually created a trust of people in technology. But earlier, if you asked before COVID, would online coursework, would online classes will be effective? There will be categorically no answer. At least in 2 years in COVID, things were forced on people. So people started seeing the strength of it. They also started realizing the weakness of this mode now. So now people are not talking in air. When somebody says online education is effective, they have a already model which was tested for 2 years during COVID time. So they know what are plus and what are minus points of this one. However, the technology role in higher education was amply emphasized during COVID, that technology can certainly come for rescue, right, if you are going for in the thing. So I'll just skip this, this little area. So to conclude then, one may say that India has made tremendous progress in ICT-based education in last about 20-25 years. Right? The e-content developed by Indian experts is at par with international standards. And sometimes I would say even better than what is developed by other institutions across the country. ICT is a great tool for the transformative learning experience with wider exposure. Right? Now NEP is emphasizing that you should have a multidisciplinary activity. You should have exposure for the variety of courses which is not in your domain. In any institution, having that kind of flexibility is not possible. You require a lot more resources for that. This content which is created, electronic content, can be facilitate that and can give you a much wider experience to the people. ICT-based education is a learner-centric and flexible system, right? And that's what the modern children want, that system should be more learner-centric. ICT-enabled education is a great societal leveler. Earlier, only privileged people could listen to the people, top people. Now, anybody, even the lowest of the society, can listen to a Nobel laureate. Right? He doesn't have to come to privileged institutions like IITs and TIFR. Right? He can listen to them. And that is something which is great, because now nobody is disconnected. And this technology actually is playing a role, as a leveler into that. The caution, of course, is the no replacement of robot education system, as I mentioned. Developing quality teachers and trainers should not be undermined. So we should not now should be under impression that since we created e-content, we don't require quality teachers to be developed. I think no, we still have to work on them. We require quality teachers who will create good content in future, will do research, do innovation, do good ideas in pedagogy and so on. There are technical and societal challenges, of course, but India at this point of time, looking at its resources, right, and the expansion of education, has no choice but to depend on ICT-enabled education, at least for a decade or two. Maybe after 20 years, we may be in the same situation as the Western countries are, where we are having a full-fledged education system, right, with the proper teachers available, proper infrastructure available. But in next 10, 20 years, when we are making a transition, I think ICT is certainly going to be a great tool to help you to bridge the gap and to bring the country at a level where the affluent or the advanced countries are, right? So with this, the sort of the perspective which is there, and there are the future directions for the ICT-enabled education. If you have any questions, let me answer that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Shevgaonkar. As expected, it was a fantastic talk coming right from the person who had actually seen the entire, the system, starting from obviously concept, whole process of, evolution. I mean, I remembering all those early 80s technologies and the whole thing. And also, I mean, these questions that you asked at the end, they're obviously something that we need to carry out of this room. And I'm sure, I think there are questions. Yeah, I'll come to you. Yeah. So let me take on.
Yeah. So firstly, very, very nice talk and very informative and comprehensive picture. But maybe a very naive question just from the other side. As you said, it works very well for the self-motivated person because, you want to study and your purpose is to learn rather than just doing it. But there are also a lot of people are doing this course saying that, because we have done this course to show on their CV when they do that. So that kind of a thing which comes in because that assessment becomes difficult on a global scale. So you may have also faced this problem with respect to that. So is there any, what is your experience about that part?
No, so there are two things here. One is, the students, when I'm calling student means somebody is going through the course.
Yeah.
Always he wants to have a tangible result of it. Now, tangible result could be in the form of certificate. It could be in the form of degree. It could be in the form of something, right? So self-motivated that I just want to learn the subject for sake of learning, that number is very small. It's not very large. So one more thing is that as now the UGC has said, if this content becomes part of the curriculum, then there is a fourth requirement that you have to go through the content. Now let us not be under the impression that in normal class, everybody is equally motivated. There are also 10% people only are motivated, others are just sitting there and listening. Right? But if it is made mandatory, something will definitely get part of it. Now, as an example that everybody goes through the course is still not, going to continue.